Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our annual Tech Day. I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Andrea Zopp, and I have the privilege of being the president and CEO of World Business Chicago. This annual event is hosted by World Business Chicago, the mayor's office, and ChicagoNEXT, and it's our opportunity to highlight our tech community and tech and innovation ecosystem and all of our incredible startups and companies that are choosing to have Chicago as the place where they are going to grow their business and build their business. And that's because Chicago has, as so many of you know, a thriving tech and innovation ecosystem where we work together, and it is a great place to grow your business. We are the #1 place for women startups, and we are the #1 place for venture capital return in the country, amongst other many strong strengths and traits that we have to make this a great place to grow your business. And you're going to hear some of that from our great panelists today. And I want to thank you. We have over 200 leaders and representatives and entrepreneurs from our tech community with us this morning. And I want to thank all of you for joining us to celebrate our great strengths and the things that make Chicago's tech ecosystem just an incredible environment and place to be. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to one of those leaders, and that is Mark Tebbe, who we are really thrilled and so lucky to have as the chair of ChicagoNEXT. And so with that, Mark, take it away.
Thank you very much, Andy. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Chicago's Tech Day. As Andy just said, my name is Mark Tebbe, and I'm proud to serve as the chair of ChicagoNEXT, which is World Business Chicago's dedicated initiative driving our city's tech economy and innovation ecosystem. Amongst our various programs, our flagship programs include today's to be announced Startup Chicago, which the mayor will share with you at about 10:45 today. The Chicago Venture Summit, which we're planning to hold in September at Google's Chicago offices. Think Chicago, which we'll hold throughout the whole year. And the Blackstone Inclusive Entrepreneurship Challenge. I tell you, when COVID-19 hit this past spring, Chicago's tech community and its leaders responded in full force to serve our city and its residents. We're lucky to have several leaders with us today to share more of their insights in our upcoming panel. Several of the innovative initiatives and efforts led by our tech community in response to the pandemic are essential as Chicago continues its path of recovery. I'm excited to be here today and moderate a discussion with some of our best tech community leaders who will each share a unique perspective of how Chicago navigated this ongoing pandemic and identified opportunities to scale. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists. First is Betsy Ziegler. She's the CEO of 1871. And while 1871 needs no introduction, I'm thrilled to remind everyone that it is the #1 private business incubator in the world. Second is Dr. Garry Cooper, who is the CEO and co-founder of Rheaply. This startup helps organizations recycle and source items in a number of industries, including higher education, healthcare, technology, government, and retail. They were selected by the city to help source PPE for local nonprofits and businesses during COVID-19. And lastly is one of the stars of Chicago, Dhruv Saxena, who is the CEO and co-founder of ShipBob. This fast-growing startup supports small businesses in making the transition to e-commerce through their innovative logistics network and technology. This past September, ShipBob announced one of Chicago's largest fundraising rounds in a long time with a $68 million Series D round. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us on today's Chicago Tech Day. We'll go in the order I just introduced you. So Betsy, tell me, 1871 has always been on the leading edge of innovation and opportunities here in Chicago. Tell me more about what happened in the COVID-19 response and how you partnered with mHub and Matter.
Yeah. So hi, everybody. Great to see you all and great to be joined on this panel. So on March 18th, Haven Allen, who's the founder and CEO of mHub, called me and said, hey, I think there's an opportunity here for mHub, 1871 and Matter to combine forces to jump into the center of this crisis and see if we can really help mitigate the impact of the crisis in the short term. And he had that same call with Stephen Collins from Matter, and we both responded enthusiastically, yes, that we are all in. And so from March 19th, a day later, we sort of set the path forward, and we've been working with about 300 different innovators across the city. Certainly the mayor's office, the governor's office, many of the founders, Garry Cooper is one of them, to help identify and accelerate products and technologies and services that can help people in Chicago. And then MHub, MHub, I just need a quick shout out, but the work that they did on creating, I don't know how many, I think 20,000 or more than that, face masks and filters, and standing up, creating a couple of new ventilators. I mean, it's just incredible. And the work that Matter did in working with a dozen or more health systems, it really shows the power of the organizations. And when you come together, it's more than a tripling of the impact, I think, that we could have by combining forces.
Yeah, I tell you, and March 18th was a good jump, but I got to tell you, Garry, let's be clear, I'm firmly convinced there are like 3 or 4 Garys in the world, because he's everywhere. He's a textile alumni. He's in 1871. He's in Hyde Park Angels. I mean, he's been every time I turn and see a tech event, I see Garry popping up. He's everywhere. But I got an email.
Go stay different.
I got an email back March 2nd from Garry saying, hey, I'm here to help as the city starts to need, or the state starts to need any PPE help. We're here to serve. Mm-hmm. And I was just shocked, because I mean, I knew there was something going on, but I had just gotten back from a Bulls game. I mean, there was not very many masked people. I'm like, what is he talking about? He's always been on the leading edge of, and cutting edge of what's going on here. So Garry, tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey here in Chicago.
Well, thanks, Mark, for the introduction. And yes, I did email you back then. My entrepreneurial journey in Chicago has been extraordinarily organic. So I've been in Chicago now 13 years, was at graduate school at an old place called Northwestern or Northside, and as a scientist, and kind of merged that into starting a business that initially started to help universities and scientists. And we've grown that now to helping Fortune 500 companies and the federal government and organizations in between. Our technology centrally connects people to available physical items or physical things in the world. And so we've been really working with large organizations to do that internally. But as it turns out, our technology was really well suited to do that for a city like Chicago, when people were trying to source PPE, especially folks on the clinical front lines. So I just wanted to get in front of as many people as a small little company in Chicago and say, hey, we can really help. And I'm so glad that we were able to work with Andrea's team at World Business Chicago and the mayor's office and Northwestern and a whole assortment of public-private partnerships that had to be forged in basically a week in order for us to be able to do what we were able to do. So super excited about that partnership and what it portends for the future.
Great. And when we talk about startups in Chicago, I used to always tell people, ShipBob was one of Chicago's best kept secrets because they were everywhere and never seen. I mean, Dhruv and his partner basically have put together an amazing business. And now with the recent, as I mentioned in the opening comments, with the recent round, they popped on the scene with a $68 million round. Someone's like, wow, who is this company? Dhruv, tell us about ShipBob and how you and your partner ended up getting started here in Chicago with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for the kind words, Mark. So what ShipBob does, and it's really useful in this backdrop of a pandemic, is we help small to mid-sized e-commerce businesses get access to best-in-class logistics. And so what that translates into is, think of all of these small brick and mortar stores during COVID as they had to pivot exclusively to online and generate a large, replace their storefront revenue by online sales. What ShipBob helps them to do is to distribute their inventory across our network of warehouses across the country, so that their customers anywhere in the country can get their or can order from these small to mid-sized brands and get their products delivered within a 1 to 2 day timeframe, without having to rely on buying everything from Amazon or everything from Walmart. So we are sort of giving these small mid-sized e-commerce businesses a fighting chance to compete against the big boys of Amazons and Walmarts. And the way we got here was simply because me and my co-founder, Deve, we were one of those e-commerce businesses ourselves not too long ago, in 2012, 2014. So my backstory is I'm an immigrant. I grew up in New Delhi, India. Came to the US in 2007 for my engineering. Went to school at Purdue, did my master's, and then came to Chicago in 2012, and found a job at another startup in Chicago called In Context Solutions. So I think this, and so from that startup, I sort of learned like, you don't necessarily have to have a job. You can have your own idea, and the city provides you an infrastructure to be able to pursue your dreams no matter where you come from. And so me and my co-founder, Debe, we started running a small e-commerce business on the side while still pursuing our full-time jobs. And so doing that, to ship out our own e-commerce orders, we would have to stand in lines at the post office, at the Willis Tower, and then at the DePaul post office. And we thought, like, we really don't want to spend our time standing in line. Is there a better solution for other e-commerce businesses like ours? And so we couldn't find one, so we decided to build one, and that's what ShipBob is.
That's that can-do attitude. I gotta tell you, and your story about entrepreneurship reminds me of so many different ones here in Chicago, and a lot of them end up crossing paths along their growth with 1871. I mean, Betsy and you guys, how the pandemic has shut down 1871's physical space in some capacity, at least to outsiders. But how are you supporting entrepreneurs today to succeed and thrive during this pandemic? Because I mean, it's changed so much, but 1871 has continued to just prosper on with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think our mission is to inspire, equip, and support founders, growth scalers, innovators building extraordinary businesses. And my job and my team's job every day is to work to increase the probability of success of all those we work with and shorten that time frame to do it. And so, on March 13th, we just flipped the switch from in person to, synchronous, physically close, proximate, to virtual, still synchronous. And everything just moved online. And to be honest, the only reason we were able to do that was because of the foundational efforts of my team in the 8 months preceding the crisis, without regard to knowing that there was going to be a crisis, of course, of completely reimagining the end-to-end experience of a founder at 1871 from the perspective of I'm thinking of, I have an idea, and can that idea be a business, to I'm building a product, to I'm launching the business, to I'm growing that business. The structure and the curriculum and how the mentors line up and entrepreneurs in residence, all that got rebuilt in the summer of 2019, tested in the fall of 2019, and rolled out in January. So we had this foundation that we had never had before in that, from a structure perspective. And then, so it was easy to pivot that to virtual. And we call that program Pyros. It's running right now. I think we've got about 230 founders in that program at the moment. The mentors continue to engage. They just shifted to Zoom or Microsoft Teams or the telephone. So they're continuing to deliver support. And so the community has rallied. We've just changed the format and the modality. And I will say, there's two additional things. One is, at the moment, I think we've got about 15% of our applicants coming in and our participants are from outside the state of Illinois, which we think is super interesting, and we'll be paying a lot more attention to. That's number one. And number two, it is unlikely that, in fact, I can probably say definitively, we will never go back to one modality, right? Before we were only in person, and now we're only virtual. And in the future, it'll be a hybrid, no matter what, because which will be harder for us to do, but that to meet the needs and expectations of those that we are serving.
That's great. Garry, I gotta tell you, Betsy's talking about how getting prepared was. I just remember over the last couple of years, I saw you everywhere. But boy, during this pandemic, you guys have you were like custom built for this. This pandemic came in perfect for Rheaply and what you've been able to do. I think share with people how you scaled during this pandemic.
Yeah, take a deep breath before I even answer that question. Let me just also say, to give another shout out to 1871 and in particular, Betsy, the partnership that we were able to forge with the city and with WBC and others was heavy-handedly Betsy Ziegler in 1871 supporting Rheaply and just seeing a solution to kind of connect people. So that would have those connections wouldn't have been made outside of Betsy. But how do we...
Garry, and we're not going to debate it now, but all you, my man, my friend.
But I wanted to say that to your question though, Mark, how do we scale? So the first thing is, I think we had a pretty good process in how we hire and try to recruit folks. But beyond that, we have core values. And so even though we're in a virtual space that I never thought about managing a team and growing a team in, we stick to those core values, and those core values persist even when we have to change how we work and where we work. And so I've been super excited about that, but also it's just, you can't do it by yourself, even in one company. So I was actually talking to Dhruv, the COO at ShipBob, literally last week. I talk to Betsy all the time. I was talking to Andrea last week as well. So it's a community in my mind that really builds and scales a company. And we've been so lucky to be a part of this community.
Well, you've been an active participant. There's no question about that. So Dhruv, I hear from people all the time, boy, this pandemic's just crushed tech community. Really hasn't been able to do it. Yet I keep telling people, no, there's a lot going on. You just don't see it. And then out of, seemingly nowhere, ShipBob announces we're taking on one of the largest VC rounds in Chicago's history. I mean, that's $16 million is a lot of money to put to work. How are you going to put this to work, and how is it going to change ShipBob going forward?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think this, what this COVID has done is accelerated, some of these trends which were already in motion. So we already were seeing the tailwinds of on e-commerce, and I think that e-commerce industry has been pushed forward at least by 5-10 years. And so for us, this tailwind translates into a large number of, designers, creators, entrepreneurs who always existed, finally being able to build products and being able to sell and market their products online and finding an audience for their products. And so we think that that trend is going to stay. And for our job is to help these e-commerce businesses, which are effectively like these entrepreneurs, be able to distribute their products to their customers in a 1 to 2 day shipping timeframe, where they can effectively find an alternative sales channel to Amazon and build a direct relationship with their customers. So our job is to basically help these merchants, be able to ship their products effectively. And so our business requires us to have a large number of fulfillment centers across the country and employ a large number of people inside those fulfillment centers so that we can make that promise of, like an Amazon Prime like delivery happen. So for us, the growth story is, hey, how many new entrepreneurs can we support on a platform? And how many new fulfillment center engineering, all of these sales and marketing folks do we need to hire to be able to bring these merchants onto our network? So I think going forward, you'll see a large number of, we have close to, since July, I think we've hired close to 500 to 600 people in our fulfillment centers. We've hired another 100 or so people in our sales, marketing, and engineering. Today, we have close to 150 open roles. And so we are actively hiring using this capital because we think there's a real market opportunity for us to build a company which allows these small businesses to have a chance against Walmarts and Amazons.
Well, we're not turning this into a ShipBob recruiting drive. What kind of roles? You say you got 150 people. I want to see ShipBob continue to do it. What kind of roles are you looking for?
So primarily a lot more on engineering and product, and of course sales and marketing as well. But I think right now with everyone being remote, I think we are growing so quickly, so we can take in as many engineers as we can potentially hire because our systems need all of their help.
Awesome. Okay, so Betsy, so you alluded to Pyros and you talked about what's going on and how surprisingly some of it's coming from outside Chicago. But I think underaware for a lot of people is how much you're focusing on Chicago underserved neighborhoods. I mean, 1871 is pushing so much to the south and west side to create entrepreneurial opportunities for those that have historically been underserved. Why don't you share about some of the initiatives you're doing?
Sure. So I've been in the role, and Mark is a member of my board, and Garry now is a new member of my board. We've been talking about this for a while, but in July of 18, we made the commitment to be connected to every Chicago neighborhood by July of 22. And that connection could look, could take on lots of different, contexts. And so what we have built, and maybe let's just say something about the why. We believe that talent and aspiration is everywhere, but that the opportunity and access to tools, resources, mentors, et cetera, is not equally distributed. That's not a new thought. That's not a Betsy Ziegler quote, right? I've stolen it from somebody else, but it is something that underpins the philosophy at 1871 every single day. And the second thing we believe is that now, this moment in time, more than ever, we need to get new businesses started, and we need to keep the businesses that do exist going and hopefully expanding. And so about a year and a half ago, we started an effort to digitize all of our content. We call that 1871 Digital. It's finally out and ready, and the platform has been rolled out to 15 neighborhood organizations as in pilot format. That started in middle of October, but the expectation is that that will be accessible to, thousands, unlimited number of people across Chicagoland, across the state. It's being delivered in partnership with existing organizations. So this is, how can we partner with an organization and because of our partnership, allow their membership to have access to the platform? That's the delivery model. And in addition, during the crisis, we obviously noticed that the non-tech small businesses were under a significant pressure. So we launched the Small Business Initiative focused on the South and West Side for non-tech companies. And we're pairing up those small business owners with tech entrepreneurs, tech founders, tech team members as their mentor to help them digitize their business model, help them prioritize what they need to do to continue to keep their businesses operating during this kind of environment, and hopefully then create the opportunity for more jobs to be created. At the end of the day, 1871, mHub, Matter, et cetera, we are economic development engines. 11,000 jobs have been created by 1871 alumni companies. And that's our data that's probably under reporting what the real impact is. And when you think about that and you apply whatever salary you want to it, I normally use $70,000, and it's about $800 million of annual salary pumping into Chicagoland. We need to do that at a scale that is significantly higher than what we are today, given the current environment. And so our why on this, Mark, and I know it's long-winded, but it's really, really important to us, and it's central to taking 1871 out of the merchandise mart and getting it into the hands of people that can leverage it to build a business.
Yeah, I mean, they need it. I mean, and they all can't be Garry Cooper, where Gary's worked in so many different ways to get ready for this pandemic. He showed the world about how he can basically create a PPA market. So Garry, as you think about Rheaply and looking forward, I mean, what advantages have you had here in Chicago that you can continue to build on as other entrepreneurs are coming up that say, oh my God, I need to make sure I can be the next Garry Cooper?
Well, that makes me laugh, and I thank you for that. I'm humbled by the comment. I would say that, one, join 1871, digitally or not. We did, and it's worked for us. There are so many great mentors and advisors that are part of the, I mean, we're looking at some of here on this panel who helped a scientist like me who had no idea and no real proper business at the time, running a small tech company. And so I would say get involved. There's so many resources within the city to take advantage of. I would say that also, to kind of echo what Betsy is saying, is that just like in 08, 09, when the market fell and you had the evolution of Ubers and Airbnbs, I too think that this unfortunate pandemic has created an environment that's ripe for entrepreneurship disruption and new innovation. And hopefully, I know ShipBob is one of those, and hopefully Rheaply will be as well, right here in Chicago.
Awesome. And Dhruv, I mean, we're almost out of time, but I got to let you have the final word. I mean, your story of standing in line at the post office saying there's got to be a better way, and now creating a business which was received one of the most recent large fundraising opportunities. What makes Chicago a place to build your tech startup?
Yeah, great question. So I think we've absolutely benefited from being in Chicago. So one, I think, is, the alternative when people think of tech startups is they think of San Francisco or California as being the hub. And what that means is, like, all these engineers, all these people you recruit, because they default into working at startups. So they hop on from one startup to the other, whichever one is the hottest startup of the day or the month. But in Chicago, as an entrepreneur, if you're hiring people, working in a startup is not the default outcome, right? You have to choose and self-select into working in a startup. And so as an entrepreneur, the advantage of being in Chicago is that the people who choose to work at a startup are really bought into the mission and the purpose of the startup. And so that means that these people are as driven as the founders themselves and make that mission as their own. And that allows for continuity and people with a long-term mindset towards building something which is meaningful to themselves, even if they are employees. I think that advantage, I think, is often underappreciated. Is like not being in the valley has sort of allowed us to hire these people who have a very long-term mindset and an ownership mindset into building our startups, in building ShipBob as a unit. And I think that sort of has resulted in us, in some part of our success.
Great. And Betsy, Garry, Dhruv, first I want to thank you for your leadership in our city in general, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, you've exemplified what we want here in Chicago. All of you have happened to manage a series of challenges, but each of your respective organizations and companies represent the best of why Chicago thrives as a global tech and innovation hub. So, and secondly, I want to thank you for taking some time out of your schedule to join us this morning. And now it's my pleasure to reintroduce Andrea Zopp, President and CEO of Vista Chicago, who will lead our next panel. Andy?
Thanks, Mark. And thank you, Betsy, Garry, and Dhruv for that, and Mark for that terrific panel, the energy, and really just showing us in real time why this is such an exciting town and place to be. And I also especially want to thank you, Mark, for your leadership at ChicagoNEXT and all the work that ChicagoNEXT is doing to help support this community and this ecosystem. I am really excited to be, and also I just want to note, if people have been paying attention to the chat, there's so much energy and connectedness going on in the chat, which is really terrific. And I'm thrilled that that is happening as well. I'm excited to join this next panel with my two really dynamic speakers. We're gonna shift the focus just a little bit to talk not just about the strength of this ecosystem, but the critical importance of making sure, as Betsy and touched on, making sure that we are building an inclusive environment and making sure that the opportunities that are coming with our growth of our tech and innovation ecosystem are touching as broad a range of our residents as we possibly can. And so it's my honor to introduce and privilege to introduce Brenda Darden Wilkerson, who is the CEO of AnitaB.org, which is focused on building and growing women in tech. And then Nicole Walker from Baird Capital, who is in focus and on in that part investing in minority and women-owned tech entrepreneurs and making that sure that that is important. Welcome, ladies. I'm so glad to be with you this morning and to have some time to talk with you. Anita, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about, Brenda, I'm going to start with you and tell me a little bit about Anita B. And what your footprint and what you're doing here in Chicago.
Yes, thank you so much, Andrea, and it's great to be here. This has been a great, energetic time so far. I'm so excited. One of the reasons why I'm so glad to still be in Chicago, even though my org is based in the Bay. So AnitaB.org, originally known as the Anita Borg Institute, is a women in tech organization that is global. We have communities in over 25 countries. We have followings from about 110 countries. We are best known for the Grace Hopper Celebration, which is the largest women in tech conference in the world. We also have a second one in Bangalore, India. But our purpose is to make sure that the table where tech is created is the most diverse place in the world. We know that tech touches every single facet of our lives, and therefore we believe that people who are creating it, imagining it, need to mirror the folks who are going to use it. And so our work is to educate. We go the entire pathway with women into tech, from what we call seekers, or those who are interested into going into tech. That could be young students. It could be women on their second, third, fourth careers. We support companies from startups all the way up to big enterprise operations in creating the cultures that are conducive to having not only diversity at the table, but inclusion and belonging. And we also work with universities around what does it mean to really make sure that you are turning out a very diverse, qualified applicant pool so that the companies that need that talent can choose from a very diverse set of folks. So here in Chicago, we are so excited to hear about all of what's going on here. This is home for me. I was married here, raised all our children here, and was part of the tech scene before we were admitting that it was that we were tech. And so I'm so excited to see us come out of the closet, as it were. Great things happen here, and we're here to support it and to make sure that the opportunities are known for women, and we can connect them to the great opportunities that exist.
Terrific, thank you. Nicole, I'm going to shift over to you to talk a little bit about what you're doing at Baird Capital and your journey in the startup investment space.
Sure, thanks for having me this morning. So at Barrack Capital, we are the direct equity investment arm and affiliated with a independently held investment bank here in Chicago. So our team specifically looked at both buyout opportunities as well as venture. So in total, we have about $3 billion under management, but I like to tell people I do not write checks that big. Our venture team is squarely focused on starting and creating and growing new businesses in both the tech as well as the healthcare practices. And so within venture, we tend to make investments in either the Series A or the Series B, and our sweet spot tends to be in an initial check size around $5 million. So we work very closely with firms here in the city like MAP and Chicago Ventures and Hyde Park Ventures, who tend to work a little bit earlier in the curve and seed or early Series A opportunities. And we really like to come in and work shoulder to shoulder with our entrepreneurs to grow our companies and really drive revenue at that point. So I have now been with the firm investing for the past 7 years here in Chicago. I was originally born and raised in the region, but got my career on the West Coast. So started venture investing and actually started my career with a venture-backed company on the West Coast.
So I'm going to ask you guys a question that seems kind of simple, but I think it's really important for us to ask. Why does it matter? Because I know both of you are passionate about expanding inclusion and opportunities for women and for people of color in the tech space. Why does that matter? Why is that important? And why are you committed to doing it? Brenda, I'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, we could talk about this all day long, right? Tech touches every facet of our lives, every single facet. And I believe that the purpose of tech, its highest and best use, is in the service of people. Well, if you're going to serve people, they should be represented. They should be at the table where that tech is created, so we can make sure that not only is it doing the right thing for them, but that their needs are being served and that no harm comes. We've seen the results of having a very narrow focus when everyone's not at the table. We could talk about facial recognition software. We could talk about some of the things that are happening in black box algorithms around racial injustice. And I think many times those data sets we know were not diverse. And I think that branched from the fact that the folks at the table who could think about who's left out, they weren't there. And so we want to make sure that everyone's solution is being considered, everyone's perspective is being considered, and therefore everyone is being served, and that we can increase our innovation. We get access to everyone's great ideas. And I could give you so many great examples of folks that if we don't do this work, if we don't think this way, we just would not be having access to the innovations that they create, the economic development that they bring, et cetera, for our neighborhoods here in Chicago, which I think is so important.
Nicole?
Absolutely. I 100 times 20,000 agree with Brenda. I cannot overstate how important it is to have the voice in the room, both on the technology side, but let's be really honest, also in terms of those who are writing the checks, because most often people are motivated by their goals and by profits and money associated with those activities. And so making sure that we also in the investment perspective or in the investment side of the table have people who are asking those hard questions. If we're looking at a new technology and we're making choices about where clinical trials should be run, how clinical trials should be developed, are we thinking about diverse populations as a part of that? Or are we just thinking the way we always have about just completing the trial as quickly as possible, regardless of how diverse that population may or may not be? So I think having women and people of different ethnicities and people with different experiences, growing up here in the Midwest is very different than growing up in the South. Lifestyle and activity is very different. And so all of those things influence how you look at an issue and how you think and how you define what inclusion and diversity really looks like. And having those different voices completely changes the conversation. I will tell you, I've stepped into boards for technologies that were directed towards females, and the entire board was male. The entire advisory board was male. Most of the engineering team is male, which doesn't discount the talent, but it can discount the perspective and what the minimum problem set or influence set of data might be when you're discussing those issues and trade-offs that go into all of that.
So what do you think are still some of the barriers facing entrepreneurs, women and entrepreneurs of color that are underrepresented in terms of how they can grow their business, and what are some of the things that you're seeing that still get in the way of letting that happen? Nicole, I'll start with you, and then we'll go switch to Brenda.
Clearly, my bias is always going to be on the access to capital. Where do you start? Because not all businesses should be venture-backed businesses, right? Is that community really supportive from angel investing, from grant investing, from opportunities or fellowships from the state? All of that really makes a difference in how strong the ecosystem can be. And I think we've seen that in Chicago. You just think about where we were 15 years ago compared to where we are now. A lot of that has to do with the infrastructure that was put in place by a lot of committed people in our city to create 1871, to create Matter, to create, angel tax credits, to create opportunities where there's an incentive to provide capital very early on for individuals to start their business. But right behind that has to be folks like me, folks like our firm, who are willing to sit in the ecosystem and really drive that access to capital. And historically, I would say that the discussions around where that access is has always been in a very small group of people. And so making sure that not only do you have access to the capital, but access to the networks and that ongoing dialogue of who are the players and who is interested in doing angel investing and who are venture firms who are looking at specific sectors that you are developing a business in is really, really important. So I always tell entrepreneurs, even when you're starting to think about an idea, before you have it fully germinated in your head, start those discussions, build the network, because it only pays off at the end of the day.
Brenda, you want to weigh in here?
So ditto to everything Nicole said. And, so I don't want to add any more to the funding, but just to say that is so important. Money, capital, access to capital in a variety of ways along the pathway is going to be very critical, but also access to where you can germinate your ideas. I was an entrepreneur in Chicago public schools. Many times people create patents, they have new ideas. Those happen within organizations and not external to them. And so the culture that will cultivate women and people of color towards creating those ideas that allows money to flow internal to organizations is just as critical. And it's just as important to make sure that people are able to solve problems right where they sit, where they see them. We heard earlier that we had an entrepreneur from standing in line at the post office. We can find ideas that are solving problems that are necessary to make our city green anywhere. And so making sure that those conversations are present to give access to capital, ideas, space to grow and learn within organizations is as important as without.
So we heard from a great panel earlier about Chicago, some of the Chicago strengths as a tech place to grow your tech business. Can we talk a little bit about what are our strengths for building this inclusive environment? What are some of the things that make Chicago a great place? We do have the highest number of women highest percentage of women tech companies in the country. But tell us, what are the things that make that happen, that are strengths for us in Chicago? Brenda, you want to go first?
Well, I think we've talked about this amazing ecosystem, the fact that we, over the last 10 years, have built up all of these tech hubs where people can get together and see each other. I think it's important that when we think about what makes a company successful, it's not just the idea or the person that comes up with the idea. Access to partners who can help them germinate that idea and run the business is really important. How do we find each other? And so being able to have these situations and these environments that were first in person and now are online is very necessary to make sure that we're able to maintain our ability to grow and to attract talent that wants to stay here. I think our educational ecosystem, if I speak from my background here in Chicago, to know that people can understand the importance of tech from the time that they're children and understand that they can contribute to it, and that we have great universities in which they can go and learn, and we have great alternative pathways where people who want to change careers can go and learn about tech and get engaged around it and be incubated. Those are the types of things that are going to make this city green and vibrant as a tech community. And I think that's why we've seen the amazing growth over the last few years. And so, you know, what's the answer? Let's do more of that. Let's make sure that we are listening, just like we would to any other customer. These are really our customers as leaders in the city. What do they need? Make sure that they have the incubation that they need to grow and to stay here.
Nicole, from your perspective, what are Chicago's strengths? You touched on the fact that we have these great incubators that are focused not on growing businesses, but all of them have a focus on inclusion and expanding diversity. But what else? What else do you see that gives Chicago a little bit of a leg up here?
You know, I definitely agree with Brenda about if you look at what we have in terms of an educational foundation between Northwestern, the University of Chicago, Champaign-Urbana, and just the sheer brain talent that we produce every year through our undergraduate as well as graduate university system, being able to lock and harness and retain more of that talent instead of having it bleed out into the coast, I think is something that we've done much more substantially over the last 10 years. And I think we're seeing the benefit of that. And so we need to make sure that we're continuing to work on retaining that talent and building that natural connection to the entrepreneurial environment here. But I would say at its core, what I love about Chicago and building businesses here in Chicago is that there's something about the Midwest kind of just get it done work ethic of, we see a problem, we attack a problem, and we talked about it a little bit on the last panel of entrepreneurs here. Once they've made that determination that they want to be an entrepreneur, they are all in. They bring their heart, soul, and spirit to it in a way that is very similar to the founders, even at employee number 100, right, in a number of these startups. And when you see that level of grit and determination to build something and to build it in our backyard, you can't train that. That has to be a part of what you're really bringing to the table. And we say, 90% of the time we are really investing in our teams and our entrepreneurs at the end of the day, because the technology and the market will change. And so you need to invest in people that you can trust, who you believe have the will and the mettle about them to get it done, and who you enjoy working with. And I think as you talk to other venture capitalists around the country, what they talk about is the spirit of a lot of the Midwest cities, in particular in Chicago, and the fact that we tend to be more capital efficient, that we just know how to be scrappy and innovative on a dollar in a way that is different than a lot of other areas.
So as we get ready to wrap up here and go to our final speaker, just can you tell us, like, what's your kind of vision for our Chicago's tech scene and where we should be headed, and what do you see that we're capable of building here? Brenda, I'll start with you, and then Nicole will go to you.
Sure. I mean, we are capable of solving problems with our tech. We are capable of being close to the people for whom we're creating the solutions. I love what Nicole said about we are scrappy. We know how to stay close to the problem, create a solution, iterate around it, and keep it real around what it takes to succeed. One of the things that I want to make sure that we don't do is try to copy what's happening on the coast. We are unique. We have a culture. We have the ability. We've been first in so many other ways. We know how to create a culture here that will nurture tech, that will make us succeed, and to make sure that we can share that success with all of the residents of the city of Chicago. We need to make sure that we pay attention to what the coast have done in terms of their successes, but in terms of gentrification and all of that other stuff that's happened in the Bay Area, I'm really excited to see that Chicago is thinking about its residents, is taking tech entrepreneurship, spreading it out throughout the city, and I see us growing a vibrant economic culture that makes us the attraction for not only the country, but around the world.
Thank you. Nicole?
I would say for Chicago, I think the singular area where I believe we could be the dominant, the undisputed #1 provider of that asset would be health technology. I think we sit in Chicago at this unique interface between what we have in terms of healthcare and what we've built here around technology and the ability to create solutions in that area. In particular, I think we could do it in a way that is more efficient, that has a higher level of quality and talent associated with it than some other geographies in the country. And I think coming out of the COVID pandemic, what was highlighted more than anything was the disparity of healthcare in the city across the country. And so to be able to have all of the talent and access that we have in our backyard to think about solutions that not only improve the quality of healthcare, but substantially improve the access to healthcare care, I think we have a unique time and place where we could get a lot of things done in that particular area. And I would love to see us be the leader in the country around that.
Me too. I like that vision. Awesome. Well, thank you both for the work that you're doing. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for being leaders in your field and for being passionate about the city and about this community, because I agree with you. We are a place of solutions. We are a place of innovation. And I think what we've heard today, both from this panel and the preceding panel, is that we continually in Chicago step up to make differences. And we have a great place to build and grow our tech and innovation ecosystem. So thank you so much for being with us this morning. It really matters as well not to only have a great city and a great culture for innovation and growth, but also to have great leadership. And we are truly fortunate here in Chicago to have that in our mayor's office. Mayor Lightfoot has been leading the charge in an incredibly difficult year, but despite that, she has continued to remain focused on critical issues like inclusion and equity and addressing our issues, but also like growing our business system and creating systems and ecosystems and creating an environment where companies like those many of you represented here today can grow and thrive and want to be. And it is truly my pleasure to turn it over to my friend, Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Thank you, Andy, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to Chicago Tech Day. This is truly one of my favorite days of the year because the spirit of innovation and entrepreneurialism that really is the driving force of our tech community. It's a marvel for somebody like me who obviously is a consumer of tech, but how smart and innovative and creative the tech community is really awesome for me to see, and I want to do everything that I can to support you. Just to kind of frame today's December 3rd, 2020. 30 years ago, I started my legal career at a firm that was then known as Mayer Brown & Platt, now known as Mayer Brown. Back in those days, we still had IBM's Electrics, which I viewed as like one of the greatest innovations of technology. There were no cell phones. They were just kind of starting. And I think back over these last 30 years, how much the world has dramatically changed just because of the innovative tech communities around the world and how Chicago has now become at the center of the tech universe. I appreciated the panel that I was able to listen into the tail end and hear from Brenda Darden Wilkerson and Nicole Walker. And I love the vision, and particularly what Nicole said on health care technology. You know that one of our great strengths in our economy is our healthcare system and life sciences. So leaning into that and coming up with innovative tech solutions makes all the sense in the world. And I love to see how that unfolds. I want to tell you, obviously, that we have faced many challenges over the course of this year because of, in part, the impact of COVID-19 on our city. But despite those challenges, we still remain one of the best tech centers in the world. And you don't have to just take my word for it. The facts speak for themselves, and allow me, if you will, to give you a few details that I think some of you know, but it bears repeating because I think it reflects on all the incredible work that you all have done. In recent years, Chicago has offered the best venture capital return on investment, greater than any other city in the country. For example, just last year, Chicago venture funding hit a decade high of more than $2 billion. That's two with a B behind it. And these achievements are no mistake. They're driven by our world-class universities, top-tier STEM talent, thriving corporate base, and local ecosystem. Each year, more and more tech companies and entrepreneurs are choosing to launch their ventures here in Chicago. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but not the least of which is the quality of life, the talent and innovation of our tech community. These tech entrepreneurs are creating much needed, high quality, and good paying jobs for our city's unparalleled workforce and exciting opportunities for our economy as a whole. We are not only the hometown of tech powerhouses like Salesforce, Google, and Uber Freight, who are continuing to double down on their commitment to Chicago and expand their footprint every year. We are also the home town of homegrown enterprises like ShipBob, excuse me, an e-commerce logistics company raising $68 million this past September in the largest venture capital rounds in recent years to fund an expansion amid a pandemic-fueled boom in online shopping. And let's not forget that the U.S. Department of Energy made a decision to place 2 national quantum information science research centers here in Chicago and the surrounding area. And the tech scene is also driving corporate relocations. For example, when Nielsen Company looked across the globe about where it should relocate and decided to relocate its company here in Chicago, not to stay in New York and not to go to Europe, one of the key factors was this city's key tech scene. David Rawlinson, the CEO of Nielsen, said in part, quote, "We were encouraged by the development of the Chicago technology scene," end quote. So it's clear that Chicago is the place for tech companies and entrepreneurs to nurture and grow their businesses, and that those within our local tech community have been invaluable partners as we continue our fight against COVID-19. For example, Chicago's 3 leading innovation hubs, 1871, Matter, and M-Hub, joined forces to mobilize our tech ecosystem to support COVID-19 response and recovery efforts. And their network of entrepreneurs, software developers, engineers, designers, and industry experts provided our city with a rich talent pool that facilitated fast and innovative solutions to answer the most pressing needs of our communities. For example, of just how impactful this work has been, we need look no further than our city's recent partnership with local startup Rheaply, led by CEO Dr. Garry Cooper. The asset exchange set up by that company and management platform brought together small businesses, nonprofits, and local manufacturers and suppliers to meet the immediate needs for affordable and reliable PPE sourcing. You'll remember in the early days of the pandemic, people were scrambling, engaged in all sides of kinds of efforts and deals to try to get PPE to meet business and social service organizations' needs. The marketplace that was created ensured that critical resources could be acquired locally through city-vetted suppliers. And this partnership has been extremely successful, with more than 2,000 verified local businesses and nonprofits utilizing the PPE marketplace, and more than 5,000 transactions that were conducted on that marketplace alone. And there are countless examples of other companies, big and small, that have pivoted their operations to provide our company with innovative solutions to keep us all safe, protected, and healthy during the pandemic. Manufacturers who switched their lines to make ventilators. Companies that were otherwise selling, for example, alcohol, that then switched to make hand sanitizer and other needed products in the midst of this pandemic. This is what technology and innovation is all about. Being nimble, being smart, looking at the market demands, and coming up with first-class solutions to the problems. I think that was something that Ms. Wilkerson said, that one of the benefits of this and really great strengths of our tech community is we and you are able to solve problems. And that's absolutely right. And it's shown through loud and clear during the course of this pandemic. So thanks to everyone for your hard work, your collaboration, your innovation. Because of all of that, our city is in better position to rise above and meet the challenges of this pandemic and to thrive long-term in a booming economic period that I think we all know and hope will be coming. Now, speaking of our city's economic success, it is critical that our economic growth continues to be guided by our values of equity and inclusion. Every resident, no matter which neighborhood they call home, deserves unrestricted access to the tools and resources and skills they need to be part of Chicago's rapidly growing tech community and industry. And if we are truly to ensure the long-term success of our tech and innovation industry, we must make this aspiration a reality. All too often, especially in neighborhoods on our south and west sides, talent remains undiscovered and untapped due to a lack of access to information and opportunities. So we are really relying upon you, tech executives and entrepreneurs, to partner with us and invest in our communities that truly need it most. Tap into the incredible potential that lies in our neighborhoods. Whether it be through expanding your company's footprint, investing in neighborhood projects, or creating community development organizations, or creating workforce initiatives that hire residents from underinvested communities, your support will be crucial to ensuring that our economic growth remains inclusive. That's why I've been particularly proud of the impact of the Blackstone Inclusive Entrepreneurship Challenge, led by the Blackstone Foundation, World Business Chicago, and ChicagoNEXT. This 3-year, $3 million grant program incubated and scaled inclusive entrepreneurship programming to underserved and underrepresented entrepreneurs in Chicago. And the Blackstone Challenge grantees, Westside Forward, Bunker Labs, and future founders were uniquely positioned to provide resources for entrepreneurs who dealt with the uncertainty and challenges of COVID-19. So thanks again to Blackstone, thanks again to World Business Chicago, and thanks again to Mark Tebbe and the folks at ChicagoNEXT. Our tech industry has been vital in ensuring our ability to respond to this unparalleled pandemic responsibly and creatively. And some of our greatest opportunities for our city's overall recovery rely into leaning into our commitment to local entrepreneurs and their ventures. We need their leadership, their grit, their ideas to reinvigorate our economy and to start growing up our startup ecosystem. That's why I couldn't be prouder to join World Business Chicago and ChicagoNEXT to announce the launch of Startup Chicago, a new program to support this incredibly important ecosystem. This initiative will connect our city's most promising startups with investors across our region and the entire country to accelerate their growth and success right here at home. The official Startup Chicago database will allow out-of-town investors to explore more than 100 startups that are here in Chicago, the majority of which are preparing for their next fundraising round in 2021. In addition, Startup Chicago will also lead a series of virtual engagements with investors and corporate partners to showcase our best entrepreneurs and their ventures. I want to take this moment to thank JP Morgan Chase and William Blair, who have a long track record of investing in our local startup community, for their support as the lead sponsors of this initiative. Bravo. I also want to thank Silicon Valley Bank and the TMX Venture Exchange for their sponsorship, and Clique Studios for their support of Startup Chicago's web development partner. To learn more about Startup Chicago, please visit the website, startupchicago.net. That's startupchicago.net. We are all beyond excited about this new project and venture, an opportunity to really showcase the talent of the tech community in our great city. I think it's going to be a overwhelming success. And thanks again to all who are responsible for bringing this idea into reality. And good luck to all of those who will be featured as part of this effort. Before I close, I want to thank each and every company and entrepreneur for choosing to invest and grow your business here in our great city of Chicago. We want to be your partners. We want to be your helpers and really your promoters of your success. So we're all here, all in, want to be doing everything that we can to showcase the talent that is right here in Chicago, which we believe is second to none anywhere in the country. With your support, I have no doubt Chicago will rise from this pandemic more economically vibrant, diverse, inclusive, and stronger than ever before. Thank you all again. Enjoy Chicago Tech Day, one of the greatest days on the calendar in our great city of Chicago. Thanks to you all, and appreciate being part of it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mayor. And congratulations on the Wolverines' great win last night. I wish the Illini could have done as well. But more importantly, thank you for being with us today, as it's been my pleasure to work with you and your team. And on behalf of so many of us here in the Chicago tech community, thank you again for your leadership during these challenging times. Since the beginning, you've been a champion and advocate for tech and innovation in Chicago, especially for the many programs and initiatives led by ChicagoNEXT. And we're excited to continue working with you as we continue the city's vital recovery from this ongoing pandemic. So again, thank you for your involvement, your activity, but most importantly, your leadership in these trying times. And I also want to thank,
thanks everyone.
And I also want to thank everyone else for joining us. As always, World Business Chicago and ChicagoNEXT will continue important work to foster inclusive growth, drive job creation, and promote Chicago as a leading tech global city. If you're interested in working with us, feel free to go visit ChicagoNEXT.org to learn more about our programs and initiatives, and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And then lastly, thank you everyone for attending today's Chicago Tech Day. As the mayor said, it is a highlight on our calendar every year. We look forward to seeing you join us next year, hopefully in person. I'm confident in person. And most importantly, we wish everyone a safe and happy, and most importantly, enjoyable holiday season. Be safe out there. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for participating.